with the heist of the century! Climb the ladder, kid! Make yourself famous!
The irresistible force meeting the immovable object.
God's bear witness! He is broken in half!
Iconic moments, unforgettable matches, memories that will last a lifetime. When it comes to professional wrestling, if you are talking about it, we are talking about it. Welcome to the WrestleChat Podcast with the Ant-Man.
Welcome to a special edition of the WrestleChat Podcast with me, the Ant-Man, joined here on this special episode by my partner in crime and one of the four pillars of the Man-Child Chronicles podcast, Michael Glavin. How are you, buddy? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. I am mobile today, as you can see. I am coming to you from the bottom of the Grand Mesa slopes in western Colorado. And but here's the thing. I travel with some gear because I would sooner die than miss an opportunity to be on here with you. So I'm excited to talk about a very, very, very busy weekend in wrestling. A lot of great things happened. So I'm excited to jump in and talk about it with you.
I appreciate you taking some time while you're away to hang out with us. Have you had a few good days away from a daily grind? Absolutely.
It's been really good. I'll tell you what. For all the beautiful places there are in the world, Colorado is definitely one of them. I'm completely surrounded by mountains, and so every direction that you look is a beautiful snow-covered mountain. And boy, it's like a consistent warm hug from nature. You just feel so safe. It's almost like a weighted blanket around you. I'm convinced that I'm sure somebody's done, movies in the Colorado mountains or whatever, but there needs to be, some story about, the impenetrable western slopes of Colorado from a nuclear holocaust or something like that. So
you're saying that's where you're going when it happens?
Pretty much. Yeah. This is
Yeah.
This is it.
Well, I appreciate you guys dropping in to hang with us here on Memorial Day, a day where here in America, where we typically take a break from our daily grind as well and pay tribute to the men and women who sacrifice their lives to keep this country free. We recognize that it's not all about hot dogs and burgers and beers, and it's about the price that those men and women paid. So we honor those who died for our freedom today. For us wrestling fans, this was a jam-packed weekend of surprises, title changes, new kings crowned, and for some, their legacy solidified. Michael, I know with all that you had going on, you were unable to catch a large part of the events of the weekend, but sometimes it's just as exciting to tell a buddy and his dog barking in the background that what happened, and as much fun as it is to sit and watch too. Are you ready to find out what highlights you need to go back and watch?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, this is going to be a brief recap, and we want to be respectful of your weekend, but give you our take before tonight's Raw. But we're going to give you a rundown of both WWE's Night of Champions and AEW's Double or Nothing. We're just going to dive into this Saturday at noon Central Time for us here in Texas. We got to catch a rare daytime premium live event from WWE. It was Night of Champions from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The Jeddah Dome was packed and ready to see a new WWE World Heavyweight Champion crowned. And what a way to start the show. Michael, I know this was a match that you did get a chance to witness top to bottom. What did you think overall?
Oh, man. It was just such an enjoyable moment in wrestling that we don't get very often. Yeah. Now, while this title is, merging with the history of the last incarnation of the World Heavyweight Championship, it just had that fresh fight feel and two guys that definitely deserve to be in that title picture. And the thing was, it was a great match. But I'm not going to say that there was all these crazy spots or there was all this just insanity. It was just good wrestling, and it was something great to watch. And will this match even go down in the history books? Maybe, maybe not. But we've got a new champion in Seth freaking Rollins. I think that was a fantastic decision. This guy has paid more than his fair share of dues. Not that AJ Styles hasn't, but for Seth freaking Rollins to come out with the title, I think he is a great way to jumpstart this again. He looked great with it. It was a great moment for Triple H to hand that to him.
Sure
and just
was.
Overall, a really, really fantastic moment in wrestling. And what a better way to start a show, too. So, man, really, I was so glad that I got to catch that before I ran out the door for some previous engagements. But it made my day. It was some good wrestling.
Before it started, I know that you texted me and go, all right, who you thinking? And I said that I think it's going to be Seth Rollins. You agreed. You thought it would be too. But there was a lot of seesaw in this match that I was like, oh, well, it could be AJ. And it just got me thinking about what we talked about. If it is AJ, what does that do to the OC? And because would it just be AJ that comes over to Raw, or would it be the whole group? Now we don't have to worry about any of that. But I am excited to see what happens with Seth Rollins, which we'll get to here at the end of the show. Next up, Becky and Trish, a match that had no title attached, like most of Night of Champions, but a lot of pride on the line. Loved Becky's Kill Bill inspired ring gear. Wasn't that cool?
Oh, so good, dude.
When you have to cover from chin to wrist to legs and boots, everything's covered on them. Their hair is about the only thing, and their face is about the only thing you see, and their hands sometimes. You have to get creative, and boy, did she ever. A great back and forth in this match as well, one that showed Trish still has it, and it is undeniable, and is also not afraid to get some help too. NXT call-up. Zoe Stark was hiding under the ring as Becky threw Trish back into the ring. Zoe snuck out, hit Becky with her finisher, and tossed her back in for easy pickings for Trish. Trish winning this one, but sure to show, one, that it's not over, but two, it allows Trish to not have to do it every single week and actually give a rub to an up-and-comer that I hear that they are just in love with and excited to see what Zoe Stark does in all of this. We had a Jeddah hometown boy, Mustafa Ali, challenging Gunther for the IC title. It wasn't the squash match that I thought it might end up being, honestly. There was a considerable offense from Mustafa, even a near fall that led to that Jeddah crowd to believe that he may have a chance against Gunther, which I kind of had the feeling, because it came out of nowhere, it seemed, he had no chance in this match. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think we all knew how it was going to end. I had a feeling that they would still book him pretty strong just because of the quote-unquote hometown crowd. And I know we'll get to this, but anytime you've got Natalya on a card, it's almost a guaranteed squash match. And so they probably didn't want to have two squash matches on the same card. But no, I'm glad that they treated him the way he did. I think he deserves a little bit more credit than he's been getting. We talked about it a little bit in recent time, but he had something cool going with that kind of. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like the leader of like that tech group or the hacker group or something going on. They've tried some cool stuff with him, but for one reason or another, not to his discredit, I think it just never took off, but I was super glad to see him book strong. But ultimately, keeping the title on Gunther is the right decision. But I think everybody came out with a win on that. So
we had a WrestleMania rematch with a story that's been somewhat lackluster, to say the least, and not because of the lack of trying. I love both of these ladies. Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair defended against Asuka and her new spicy blue mist. I don't really know what that's about, but at one point, Asuka tried using it conventionally, spraying it like she normally does, but Bianca ducked, so Asuka had to go the unconventional route. She sprayed her fingers and then rubbed her fingers in Bianca's eyes when Bianca had Asuka up for a finisher. We got a new Raw Women's Champ, and that is Asuka. I hope this story develops and becomes one that has a little more meat on the bone. But really, when you don't have a champ that is able to speak where everybody can understand, or have an actual manager with her, it's going to be challenging, like it has been over the last several years with Asuka.
Yep. It was an interesting move to switch the title there. Even if you look at the betting odds, which are usually very, very accurate, Bianca Belair was like minus 2,000. No one knew that was really going to shift based on the betting odds. And it's not my favorite thing. I mean, I know that we're in a season right now where they want longer championships. It seems like they're trying to refresh some of the records that are in the record book.
Yeah, it does.
So this was a strange move to me, and so I echo your sentiment. I hope they do something with it, because unless Bianca's injured or there's something going on. I don't know if she's going to Hollywood. I don't know what she's doing, but it seemed like an abrupt title change with a feud that has really only been going on for a minute. And so we'll hope that they have some time to develop that a little bit more.
SmackDown Women's Champ, Mommy Rhea Ripley looked to battle Natalya on Natalya's birthday. And there are two things that is never good for any competitor. That is a hometown match and a birthday.
Yep.
Rhea toppling Natalya in only 69 seconds to retain that title on a show that she doesn't even wrestle on. I don't know why it still bugs the living crap out of me. But flip the titles if she's going to be on Raw. At this point, I'll go back to just switch them in the ring, hand them to each other. I'm fine with that. Just get the title on the person that is wrestling on the show that she's wrestling on.
Yep, absolutely. I said this a few weeks ago as the card was coming up. I don't know what is with this inclination to just constantly squash such a fantastic competitor and one of the best wrestlers in the entire women's division. So don't get me wrong. I still think the title should have stayed with Ripley, but I don't know if the show is running long. I don't know how the show can run long every time that Natalya wrestles. But it's just like, man, just let her be booked a little strong.
Please.
And, because I would have to believe that especially Triple H would know that just because it's a squash match doesn't mean that makes the competitor look stronger than if it's a battle to win. And so when you have, we'll get to it later, but look at the Brock and Cody matches that we've been seeing. Both guys look incredibly strong, and they're not squash matches. Yeah. And so it was frustrating for me because while Natalya is not one of my favorite people on the roster, I believe she deserves way more respect and credit than she gets.
I'm right there with you. We speaking of Cody and Brock, we all saw Cody's arm after Monday's attack backstage. It looked like Cody may not be able to compete at Night of Champions. However, after a convincing talk with Triple H and a tightly cinched titanium-backed cast, Cody made a good showing against Brock at this show. It looked as though Cody may try to reopen that backlash wound on Brock's forehead while using that cast as a weapon. Never saw any blood except from Brock's shoulder from another spot in the match. Cody had way more offense than I think anyone expected, or at least that I expected. He even gave many hope that he may be able to come out on top, but reminiscent of Stone Cold's blood running down his face while in Bret Hart's sharpshooter, Cody simply passed out from the last of many Kimura arm bars from Brock. The bet is this is going another round here before SummerSlam, I would predict. Would you?
Absolutely. I don't want to say I called it, but a few weeks ago on the WrestleChat podcast, I said, I think we're going to a rubber match.
Yeah.
And I think that was a pretty easy prediction for most people. I'm glad we're doing it because watching these guys is just great. They're both at the top of their game, which is surprising for how long Brock's been around. But he just has that presence. Cody has that fresh feel, with his American Nightmare persona. So very excited for what SummerSlam is going to look like. The only thing that I wish I could have gotten was reminiscent of the Brock and Triple H feud back maybe even a decade ago now, where Brock would do the Kimura and then he would just do that slight little quarter turn and make it look like the arm got broke. And I was really hoping for that in this match, but I guess with an already broken arm, maybe it wasn't too doable. But they
tried to call attention to something like that happened on Monday.
Yeah,
there was a little tweak at the end, and they tried to make it a little bit bigger than what it looked like. And okay, now he's got a cast, and his arm is broke. Well, last but not least in this show, the head of the table, Roman Reigns and Solo, now without a last name, at least for this show, took on the undisputed world tag champs Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. After a ref bump, the Usos showed up to help. And Roman took exception to that, pushing both Jimmy and Jay in the face, telling them to get out of his ring and that day one was no more, only to catch a super kick from Jimmy Uso, not one, but two, with both guys leaving. Solo was the legal man, and after a haluba kick, Sammy pinned Solo to retain the tag straps, and we continue to see piece by piece by piece. I posted a little picture of who was the guy, the Salt guy? It's like
Salt Bay.
Salt Bay. It's just the crumbling of the bloodline. And I love how because they can tell. I mean, does it appear to you that maybe the next feud for Roman is with his cousin, Jimmy Uso?
It does appear that way, and man, I don't know who is writing for the Bloodline, but they need a freaking Oscar. Like,
yep.
And here's why: because
all of them,
because I enjoyed greatly that it wasn't. I always get them mixed up. It's who kicked him.
Jimmy
kicked him,
yeah.
But then Jay had this very like, oh crap, what just happened? What did you do?
Yeah.
And so there could have been a lot of temptation to turn both of them and have it just be the 0 to 100 flip. But now you have this multi-stage tension in the family that is going to play so well in a story. And so to see one guy who's fully against Reigns, to see one guy who's stuck in the middle between his brother and his tribal chief, his cousin, it's just such beautiful story writing. So as we've said every time that we've talked about this on the show, I have no idea what they're going to do, but I am here all day for it because there has not been one situation with the Bloodline where I have left disappointed. And I'm just very excited that whoever's in control of this is willing to do the slow burn that this story deserves.
Yeah, and I think something that we should think about now and look for in the future, whether it happens or not, see if it does, because they've only paid a little bit of attention to Solo actually being the younger brother of Jimmy and Jay. Jimmy and Jay are twins, but Solo is their brother.
Yep.
Does that mean something in the future to this storyline? We'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Before we move on to AEW's pay-per-view, today I'm wearing one of our shirts off the top rope, the WrestleChat Podcast shirt. If you want to check out this shirt or any of the other ones that we have them all up now, 6 new designs, or our first 6 designs, I should say, up at WrestleChatPodcast.com. Check those out. Great way to support and get something out of the podcast as well. WrestleChatPodcast.com, right there on the front page. You can check out all the shirts, order yours, and it'll get to you quickly. We appreciate you doing that. If you grab one of these shirts, or should I say when you do, grab it, post a picture, or send us a picture of you wearing it, and we'll share it here on this show too. WrestleChatPodcast.com, right there on the front page. Sunday night, live from Las Vegas, where it all began. AEW's Double or Nothing was indeed stacked. Some expressed their feelings of how they thought that maybe it was overbooked. Personally, I thought from top to bottom, this was the best pay-per-view I've ever seen from AEW, and they moved the announcers to ringside. I hope this is permanent, man. We talked about this when we were at the show in Austin. Like, you asked me, do you like it up there or do you like it down by the ring? By far, I love it down by the ring. I've had several conversations with JR, who expresses that he absolutely hates being up on the stage. When he was there in WWE, it had to do with the pyro, especially when Kane would come out. I think it also is just being closer to the action and being there in the middle of it. And you have the best seat in the house when you are a ringside announcer. And I hope this is a permanent thing and they keep it down there. Blackjack Battle Royal saw Orange Cassidy take on 20 other competitors. The battle ended between Swerve Strickland and Orange Cassidy, and OC came out on top to retain that title. I think we all kind of expected that to be the case, unless he was hurt or they were just completely moving in a different direction. But it was also nice to see some stories being told during that match, which I think that is the biggest complaint from a lot of fans with AEW, is their storytelling. This pay-per-view, there was some outstanding storytelling from top to bottom, and we'll get into some of those. But during that match, there were several, too many to get into on this recap. But if you kind of watch that match, just watch it in its entirety, just by itself, though, single it out and watch it, and then pay attention in the coming weeks and see if they don't, especially with Collision, if they don't take some of the stories from that Battle Royal and move them into storylines on shows. That should be a lot of fun. Up next was an unsanctioned match, which just means there are no rules, and I don't think that it really lived up to the expectations of the competitors. I think it extended some storylines, but sometimes when you throw a bunch of ingredients, into a boiling pot, you sometimes get something tasty, and then other times you say, well, I probably won't do that again. And I'm thinking for both of these competitors, they leave saying the latter. Sabu was supposed to be involved in this. He took 1 or 2 bumps, and then both sides, the Jericho Appreciation Society and Roderick Strong and Sabu, everybody just left and went backstage. And then they weren't a factor the rest of the entire match. He had a couple of bunch, leaving everybody out there, those two out there alone, at least Jericho and Cole. On paper, it looked like these two would tear the T-Mobile Arena down. But what I think we got was a case of styles clash in this match. It ended with a ref stoppage because Adam Cole was beating Jericho in the head. These were legit shots that left Chris with a black eye that you could actually see developing with every single blow. But to stop an unsanctioned match because it was too brutal seems like having a Hell in a Cell with no blood or stopping it because of blood.
This is going to be a recurring theme, isn't it?
It is. Well, if they keep doing it, it's going to be a recurring theme. It's like, man, why are you stopping an unsanctioned one you don't even take responsibility for, but you're going to stop the match because he's hitting him too hard? So and bad. I did say at the beginning, I love this pay-per-view. I did. I don't love the ending of this match. I do like the story between these two. I honestly thought both of their styles would complement each other. It felt a little fumbly, but I still love both guys. And in fact, I mean, it was set up so big, especially with JR. He's like, superstar to superstar. I think you have the two best battling in one match in all of AEW. And I, at the end of it, understand that I think it's probably the worst match on the best pay-per-view card I've ever seen from AEW.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of Jericho. Are you a big fan of Adam Cole?
I am. So I'm not as familiar with his work on the independent scene prior to his NXT debut. But what I do know is every time that I see him, he's fantastic. He's an incredibly smooth wrestler. He carries himself and has that big fight feel when he does stuff. So I would love to see him get some really solid gold. I think he'll work up to it eventually. But I really do like him, baby.
FTR took on Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett to defend their tag straps, and Mark Briscoe was a special guest referee. Mark honestly just a little sloppy at the start, and it sounds like I'm dogging the show. I really do love the show, but you see it, they were blatant. I mean, they stuck out big, but they got it together really quickly, and he ended up doing a really well done job as a ref. When this guy's, I don't even know if he's ever reffed a match. He's always wrestled. A ref bump in this match led to a couple of guitar shots, and one of those was from Karen Jarrett on referee Aubrey Edwards. She came down to try to save the day and be the new ref, and Karen said no way, and popped her good, man. After Jeff perceived that Mark was slow counting, Jeff pushed Mark into the corner. Mark slapped Jeff, and FTR ended up getting the pin to retain. This was a very entertaining match, top to bottom. There are a lot of, it was a spot fest heavy pay-per-view, but there were a lot of fun spots, I should say, in that. Maybe the highlight match of the night, though, was Christian Cage. He took on Wardlow for the TNT title in a ladder match. We all remember and were reminded by JR and the announce team that Christian has had many successful ladder matches. They even mentioned Edge, and they mentioned the Dudleys, too. A man the size, though, of Wardlow, he's pretty close to 300 pounds, should never be on a ladder that tall to clean out gutters at his house, much less to deliver a swanton on his opponent. This guy took a swanton bomb off the top of probably a 30-foot ladder.
Oh, my gosh.
On top of Luchasaurus.
Wow.
And landed it. It looked like he landed hard, very hard, clipped Luchasaurus, but he got up and still managed to climb a ladder and retain his title. Wardlow. Man, is Wardlow the new and improved Goldberg?
I think so.
Maybe.
He's got some decent mic skills. Boy, if he doesn't have the look. But you got to treat a character like that very carefully.
I agree.
I think that when you're dealing with his size, you got to make sure to protect him from a booking standpoint, because once you ruin it, there's nothing you can do about it. I think there's a lot to him. I don't know much history on him. I don't know how long he's been around, but right now it seems like he's doing really well and being booked strong in AEW. So I'm excited to kind of learn more about him as time goes along.
Those kind of bumps can can shorten a career, though, especially a guy his size.
Big guys have bump cards that aren't as big.
Exactly. That's for sure. We all knew that Jamie Hayter was injured. Tony even mentioned it on his media call last week. So the impression was this may be a quick match for the AEW women's title. It wasn't as quick as I thought it would be. It had a lot more substance and a lot more, well, now I'm not sure that Jamie's going to lose moments. But Tony Storm did end up coming out on top for a second time. The first one was as an interim, but Tony Storm is your new AEW Women's Champion. I'm excited to see what she might do with this and see if this doesn't lead to something with Tony Storm and Dr. Britt Baker, MD. So looking forward to that. Probably for me, the best wrestling match of the entire night came in the trios match. House of Black taking on the Acclaimed, and I'm always entertained by Max Caster's raps, but this one was over the top, claiming in his rap that Buddy was being cucked by a guy named Dominic. And if you don't know this in real life, Buddy and Rhea Ripley are a real life couple. And I'm sure that you do know that. Most people do. If you don't, now you do. House of Black ended up coming out on top in just a very well told story inside the ring. No props, no run-ins, nothing like that. This was a great wrestling story in the ring. I just got to say, though, I think we're going to be talking about that line possibly for a couple of years.
Yep.
And we may end up seeing something happen out of it. I wonder if we don't.
There are a few moments in time that that reality crosses over a little bit. And while that one was definitely more playful because we know that, Rhea and Buddy are a couple, I'm hearkened back to the rap battle inside WWE with the Usos and Xavier Woods when the end of the rap I will so clearly remember was just don't get all rated R like your boy Xavier Woods. and the whole ring of all these guys, extra beyond the Usos and the New Day lost it. And those are some of the best moments when we can cloud the veil of kayfabe, and have it blur into reality. So that very, very cool moment from the Acclaimed, smart guys, and that's why they are so over.
Your TBS champion, Jade Cargill, had gone 59 matches undefeated going into this match with Taya Valkyrie, and she would end a brutal match at 60. But as Lee Corso says, not so fast. Smart Mark Sterling said there was no one left for Jade, and that's when we got the return of Chris Statlander. And Jade had a standing open challenge, so Chris took her up on it after a brutal, brutal match. Needless to say, after the grueling match with Taya, we have a new TBS champ and a returning Chris Statlander. Huge pop from the crowd, too. I expect to see maybe Jade take a little time off after defending that title many, many times and coming out victorious. The Four Pillars match was outstanding. Yes, it was a spot fest. That's pretty much all it was, a spot fest, the entire match. But these guys know how to do it. Some that just made me cringe. It was a great story with MJF, though, and Darby. Those two were, Darby said, I may just beat you with a headlock takeover. Well, after a coffin drop, it looked like Darby was going to do that. But one of the other guys broke up the pin. However, later on, Darby went for a coffin drop on Jungle Boy. That's when MJF dropped the Triple B title on Jungle Boy's chest. Just before Darby landed, Darby hit his head on the title. MJF snatched Darby up, looked directly in the hard cam, put him in a headlock takeover, and pinned Darby. MJF, still your AEW champion. Do you see him being beaten anytime soon?
I hope not. I mean, the worst thing you can do is ruin someone who's just doing such great work. The title, Triple H always had a line where he said, the guy is responsible for making the title doesn't make the guy. And I believe that's what MJF is. MJF is adding legitimacy to the AEW championship. I believe that he is making believability. Yeah. He's making it a prize to be sought after. And so I'm here for as long as they want to keep it on him. Because right now, while you have some big names and you have some people that could maybe do it, MJF is the only one that can definitely do it right now.
I'm not sure how to break down this final match or give highlights of an Anarchy in the Arena match with the Blackpool Combat Club taking on the Elite. It was bloody. It was painful, especially for Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks. Moxley had ripped Matt's Jordan off after, well, the explosive Jordan, I should say, the one for a super kick that ended up blowing up in Moxley's face. But he threw that Jordan out into the crowd. He ended up spilling a bag full of thumbtacks into the ring, then dropped Matt barefoot into those tacks. His heel was absolutely covered. You're cringing right now, Michael. You feel it, don't you?
Why? Just why? Just somebody tell me why. There's something weird. Like, if you had to tell me, like, you're going to kidnap my family and I'm never going to see him again, and my choices are take a back bump on thumbtacks or have my foot, straight down on thumbtacks, I'm taking the back bump every time.
Every time.
Every time. It's
you don't
so
see it
bad.
coming either.
No. Ugh.
We did see a surprise turn from Takeshita. He's in all black, jumped in with a knee strike on Omega. Wheeler Yuta tied up Omega for the win. The Blackpool Combat Club coming out on top. And I think these are just the kind of matches that Jon Moxley prefers to have. I don't think he wants any kind of normal match ever. Even if he does, he's still going to bleed. I think you sneeze at that guy now and he bleeds, but he always puts his body through so much and does it all for the fans. And it was a fun ending to that night with the band who sings Wild Thing playing live for the majority of that match until their lead singer got super kicked. Then the band had to end. Could no longer play if we don't have a lead singer anymore.
That's great. The funny thing about Jon Moxley is, as great as it is to watch his matches with the brutality, what makes it the most fun is to watch Renee Paquette's Twitter during Jon Moxley matches.
Agreed.
The amount of GIFs and memes that are used legitimize everything that Jon Moxley does. And so those guys are definitely a pair, and they complement each other when Jon Moxley's got to do really, really stupid stuff.
This show is called the WrestleChat Podcast for a reason. We want you guys involved in the chats here, too. Let us know what you thought of both events this weekend. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and we'll share them on Saturday's show. Big night on Raw playing tonight. Can't wait to see what happens there and see who Rollins' first opponent is as the new WWE World Champ. I'm wondering if we don't have a big surprise tonight on Raw.
I hope so. Again, there's plenty of good people that can step into that title picture, but I do believe that we need a jump start to that program. If we believe what Triple H says and that it's going to be the working man's title, then let's bring somebody out and let's put Seth Rollins through some paces. Somebody really, really good. But who that is, we don't know.
Looking forward to watching tonight. Looking forward to hanging with you again on Saturday. Appreciate you being with us here on this special edition of the WrestleChat Podcast. Hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day. And remember what it is all about. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. It is WrestleChat Podcast. And if you're listening and not watching, also go over there and check out the podcast on YouTube. It's WrestleChat Podcast. Easy to find wherever you are. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you on Saturday. Michael, safe travels back home, and we'll see you on Saturday as well.
Thank you, sir.